Hi, my name is David Hladek. I'm presenting this video as a portion of a February 21st, 2013 public presentation at the Crofton Community Centre on the Crofton Waterfront, its industrial legacy, environmental impacts, and the community's vision for the future of the Crofton Waterfront. This is part 3 of 3 parts, and this is the community vision section. There's been a lot of work over the past decade and beyond on plans for the Crofton Waterfront, starting with, at least in recent history, with the 2002 BC Ferries proposal to take the public green space at the center of town, convert it into an amphitheater, some more green space down at the bottom, but also put a large parking lot for the ferry access at the bottom. The community did not support that proposal. In fact, it was fairly unanimous in not supporting that proposal, mostly for the desire not to lose any green space along the water and not to have our waterfront turn into a parkade for the ferries. In 2009, some work was done by Lanark, doing a little bit of a larger scale proposal for the waterfront. It mostly focused on what to do with a couple of properties related to the Crofton Quay, and then tying that in with the existing waterfront and adding some water licenses for marinas and such. Again, this proposal was not largely supported by the community, and what it shares in common with the 2002 plan is that it was too narrow in scope. We don't feel it took in enough of a section of the Crofton waterfront or town into account, and B, they were really both plans that were brought into the community by outside interests. In 2002, BC Ferries had a specific interest for our waterfront. In 2009, the Crofton Quay proposal had a very specific interest for our waterfront. And at no point in time in recent history anyways has anyone come to the community and just asked what its vision is for its own public spaces and waterfront. And that's really what we think is the starting point. Today, the area for that waterfront should, in our mind, include the entire Chemainus estuary, the mill site, the Shoal Islands, the waterfront in front of Crofton, the Osborne Bay area, including the beaches or former beaches along the south shore of Osborne Bay Park, and then this part is arguable where the line ends, but for the sake of the map, the line got drawn here all the way to the power lines on the way to Maple Bay. All of this is our active waterfront. All of this ties in together. If you watch section 2, part 2, there were some arguments made as to how changes on one part of the waterfront greatly impact other parts of our waterfront. So we can't be doing development in silo along our waterfront. We need to have a large-scale waterfront plan that accommodates all uses, public, private, commercial, industrial, and also pays attention to the environmental impacts and where we think a long-term sustainable Osborne Bay and Crofton Waterfront would look like. So with that in mind, in 2010 a survey went out to the residents of Crofton. Over 120 respondents to that survey gave grades to a proposed waterfront plan. This waterfront plan came out of a focus session group work. We spent an afternoon with 20 or so residents, young and old, newcomers, long-time residents, and took out felt markers and drew all of our ideas onto a map. These ideas went out for public feedback and input, and from that public feedback and input, I'm going to present the 9 most popular suggestions for our waterfront based on that proposal. The Crofton Waterfront public plan for that waterfront is available on the North Cowichan website, as is a copy of the survey and the survey results. Unanimously, virtually, public strongly supported the restoration of our southern beach. More than removal of the slag, more than concerns with dredging, more than concerns with dioxins and furans which might be in the bay. Residents of Crofton would like to have their sandy beaches on the south side of Osborne Bay restored. There's a lot of public understanding or appreciation of the fact that the deterioration of the beaches happened at the same time as the creation of the causeway and the log sort. So it's understandable then that the second suggestion, most popular suggestion, was the removal of the causeway to that log sort, with the idea there being that if we can remove that causeway, open up the waterways, that hopefully that would restore some of that flushing that historically occurred and clean up our beaches on the south side. Another popular suggestion was the extension of the seawalk. We have a wonderful, beautiful jewel in Crofton here that is universally appreciated as the most, as the crown jewel of Crofton. It's the seawalk, which is phase 1 here, phase 2 extending past the RV park, and phase 3 now our beautiful section that goes to the Crofton beach area, the Barrage Beach. The next phases 4 and 5 and 6, if you will, the community would love to see them extend northward. There's going to be a lot of work to be done, of course, with how to integrate or go through or work with industrial uses in the north here. There is a section that would seem fairly easy to cover at the beginning, and ultimately it would bring access to Mill Point Park, which is a beautiful park on the north side here, and these islands, shoal islands in the north. And if you've ever gone boating or walking or hiking out there, you appreciate what a beautiful landscape it is. A lot of wildlife, amazing views north along the Narrows here, and views towards the mainland and the mountains in the background. At low tide, these islands are all accessible by foot, so by extending some public access northwards, we would open up a lot of access to the Chemainus estuary area. Another popular suggestion, and really what was the instigator for a lot of the public planning, community planning that's gone on over the last few years, was in relation to height concerns for waterfront development. A suggestion to create a 200-meter zone along our waterfront and restrict the heights of any buildings along that 200-meter zone to a residential 9-meter height restriction is very popular in the community. So any new commercial development which would occur along the beaches would be limited to the same height as the residences in behind those commercial developments. So everyone in Crofton would be able to retain their view. If you visited Crofton, you know that Crofton is in a beautiful bowl shape, and almost every house in town does have some ocean views from it. And concern was that if we started adding building heights along the front here, 4-story, 5-story, and even higher under some proposals along the waterfront, you're impacting everyone in town and negatively impacting their views of the ocean and waterfront. So a 9-meter height restriction zone along that waterfront, a 200-meter stretch of waterfront, would do a lot to satisfy the residents' needs to preserve those waterfront views and preserve, if we need to have higher commercial developments, taller buildings, there's lots of potential on the north side of town or on the uplands areas to do those higher buildings, but not to do them along the waterfront. Another suggestion that people were in favor was a new ferry green space. This area down here, the municipality owns this property here. The boat launch is on lease from the mill, but none of this is an active industrial area. So along with the suggestion to move the ferry dock northward possibly, the creation of a new green space on the north side of the ferry dock was a popular one. When the survey was done in 2010, the Chemainus estuary still was privately owned. Since that time, Ducks Unlimited has purchased the land, as I understand, and it is effectively a protected area now. So it's a beautiful former, it used to be a very active clam bed fishery. A lot of wildlife lives in there. There's a lot of tidal flows back and forth. Amazing shellfish, crabs, and fish and eelgrasses in that area, and now it looks like it is protected. So number 6 on the list has already been ticked off, and we'll look at some of the other ones. Number 7, most popular, and these were ranked in order of popularity, so now these are all still very popular suggestions, but universally popular was to restore Crofton beaches, and as we get into 7, 8, and 9, instead of being extremely in favor, I would suggest that Crofton surveyed residents are very in favor of these suggestions. So one was to reroute the sewer lines from Crofton instead of spilling out into the bay, going through the mills sewer lines farther out. The RV park in the center of town, currently phase 2 of the seawalk goes along it, but that bottom portion of the RV park, the one that's at sea level virtually, or just above sea level, is private campground. Suggestion that when and if and when that property does change hands, that lower section be preserved as a new public green space with a water park feature for the youth to play in, was a popular one. And then finally, our beloved seawalk, also in maybe phases 7, 8, and 9, or 8, 9, and 10, possibly extending the seawalk south. The current plans for the seawalk, once you get to Barrage, is a land route all the way up to Osborne Bay Park, which is right here, and then you can access Osborne Bay Beach, which is a public park down in here. So another possibility would be somehow adding some sort of structures, stabilizing the foreshore, something to extend the seawalk all the way along the bottom. And you can imagine if we had the seawalk going from Osborne Bay Park all the way to Mill Point, that would be quite an incredible experience for pedestrians and people for recreation purposes, and even drawing tourists into our area. And it's an excellent vision to shoot for. Those seawalk extensions, along with all of the other suggestions, are just suggestions. They were, I wouldn't describe them as pie in the sky, but they are, I guess, a true vision of what Crofton feels is important for its waterfront. Much more so than removal of slag, creation of marinas, and other suggestions that we've had for the waterfront, parking lots for BC ferries. These things don't rank high in the interests of Crofton residents. However, the list of 9 here that I've mentioned certainly do. The source of this information, again, was a survey, a public survey that was created by the Crofton Community Planning Committee in 2010. Over 400 copies of the survey went out. 120 of them were recorded and the data entered, and that's where this information comes from. Sorry. That information is available through North Cowichan. My name is David Hladek. My phone number 250-246-9223. I thank you very much for your time, and I wish you a wonderful day.